Percy Jackson. I grew up with this book series, as you can probably tell by my heavily worn copy. It's an amazing series about a young boy in a world full of magic and adventure. Greek gods are real and still interfere with mortals. How will our young demigod fare in this dangerous world of monsters and magic? These books are full of imaginative characters, fantastical scenarios, just some great writing. And some of the writing may kind of show its age now as a product of the mid to late 2000s, but man, it was a fun series for kids. I still remember how difficult it was tracking down copies of the last couple books as they were coming out. I remember putting in hold requests at both my school library and my local library and being like the 12th person in line for them sometimes. Kids were sorting themselves into cabins based on what Greek god they thought was coolest. I personally was always kind of an Athena kid, and they were all imagining cool monsters they wanted to fight. There was a hot minute there where seemingly everyone was certain this book series was going to be the next Harry Potter, a cultural icon that defined a generation of children.
Welcome to my parents' house. Welcome to my parents' My mom left out some snackies.
And then they made a movie. And another movie. So that kind of killed most of the franchise potential the series had at the point, and for the next decade or so it seemed like the series would remain this somewhat niche pop cultural piece. Riordan was still making books, and many of those were great, but I don't think many people were really expecting a ton from this series.
It's over, isn't it? Isn't it? Isn't it over?
Until new content! It's a live action! And a full series! It's not some movie that's going to have to massively carve up the whole series. It's a show that'll be able to include all those fun details and thrill the fans!
What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah! Except during the lead up to release, they seemed to constantly shoot themselves in the foot. For every great thing they did that would really build up hype among fans, they also did something pretty stupid. They got Rick Riordan himself to work on it. But the series is only 8 episodes on Disney+. They're trying to closely follow the plot of the books, but they're race-swapping a bunch of characters.
Oh no. It's gonna be one of those days.
I'm gonna be totally honest and say I was probably gonna skip the series, or at least if I did watch it, it'd be like 6 months from now on a long weekend binge or something. But then my kid sister was home for the holidays, and she watched the first 2 episodes when they came out, and she really wanted me to see it. It was one of those books that we both really bonded over as kids, so I figured I'd give it a shot. And my review? I'm mostly pleasantly surprised.
Ha! Neat!
As of writing and recording this, only the first 4 episodes of the series are out, and given my turnaround time on editing, there's probably 1 or 2 more that's going to be released by now. So, about half to 2/3 of the first season. And it isn't bad. There are problems, to be sure. CGI can be a touch wonky at times, the pacing's kind of weird, and they moved around some character motivations, and while I commend the choice of actual child actors in the appropriate age range, the chemistry between the main trio could use some work. All that said, they have done some really cool stuff. Not only have they done a far, far better job at adapting these books than the movies ever did, but they've even gotten above and beyond in a few areas. They've added in bits and pieces that weren't in the first book, but foreshadow later entries, creating a better sense of progression, the kind I feel that Rick Riordan would have done if he had the chance to go back and rewrite them.
If I could turn back time.
Right now, my grade for the show is a solid B, maybe B-. It's not bad at all, really. It's a very solid attempt. But it's not stellar, though, and it has the potential to be stellar. And in my opinion, the reason it isn't can at least partially be found in what was left on the page.
I like to gaze some time upon my work. not so good.
C+.
I'm going to try my best to avoid too many specific spoilers on what is in the show. But to make my writing a touch easier, here's your official warning to switch off the video now if you're looking to avoid details. I'm also going to be pretty nonchalant about book spoilers because the last one of these came out like 15 years ago. When I'm talking about details left out, I'm not looking to nitpick. There are probably already 100,000 things changed from the books videos all over the internet, and while I'd be interested in making one and talking about some of those things, they're not really what's holding the series back.
Yeah, then you'd all know what I have to deal with in high school. It's a real mess.
I don't see the problem. When the journalists come, I'll just destroy them.
I didn't knock the letter grade down because I didn't see Argus or Percy drinking chocolate chip cookie flavored nectar, or even because they cut out the scene with the Hellhound, even though that was kind of pivotal to their quest motivation. I am knocking the series down because it ignores some of the philosophical underpinnings of the original work. These underpinnings are best laid out in the very first conversation between Percy and Chiron in Camp Half-Blood, which the series ignored. I am, of course, referring to Western civilization. And if I'm going to talk about Western civilization, I might as well embrace it and dress like a high school history teacher. So, let's go to the primary source.
Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
You mean the Greek gods are here? Like, in America? Well, certainly. The gods move with the heart of the West. The what? Come now, Percy. What you call Western civilization, do you think it's just an abstract concept? No, it's a living force, a collective consciousness that has burned bright for thousands of years. The gods are part of it. You might even say they are the source of it, or at least they are tied so tightly to it that they couldn't possibly fade, not unless all of Western civilization were obliterated. The fire started in Greece. Then, as you well know, or as I hope you know since you passed my course, the heart of the fire moved to Rome. Believe it or not, the show cut this conversation entirely. To play devil's advocate with myself, I can at least partially understand why. This conversation in the books is where Percy really learns that the gods are around and what all those monsters and weird stuff happening to him has been. The show tries to move this up a full episode and have Percy's mom explain things to him. The problem with that is that not only did this conversation explain the gods and monsters, it also explained why Percy's quests, not just the one in this book, but the ones in every book, really mattered.
Yep, that's pretty much the story.
You see, by tying the gods to Western civilization, the book series was able to give you more context for what the rule of Olympus actually meant for people. Chiron can give us a bit more detail about what a world without the West would mean later in the book. This is said as the trio is preparing to leave for their quest. Percy asks, what was it like before the gods? Even I am not old enough to remember that, child, but I know it was a time of darkness and savagery for mortals. Kronos, the lord of the Titans, called his reign the Golden Age, because men lived innocent and free of all knowledge. But that was mere propaganda. The Titan King cared nothing for your kind except as appetizers or a source of cheap entertainment. It was only in the early reign of Lord Zeus, when Prometheus the good Titan brought fire to mankind, their species began to progress. Even then, Prometheus was branded a radical thinker. Zeus punished him severely, as you may recall. Of course, eventually the gods warmed to humans, and Western civilization was born. These conversations set an important tone for the entire series, as well as spelling out the primary motivations of both the heroes and the villains. One of Percy's main character arcs through the entire first book is coming to the conclusion to fight not merely for his own survival, but also for the gods and what they stand for. Annabeth, while struggling with her fatal flaw in Book 2, talks about how Western civilization represents a lot of the best things mankind ever did. When Percy meets Kronos in the final battle of the first books, he is fighting on behalf of Western civilization, defending its history and its values. Freedom, liberty, but also the responsibility to defend those things until the very bitter end. Luke, for instance, almost never has a conversation with Percy without threatening to destroy Western civilization.
The bigger ones will be tougher, like bring all of this crumbling to the ground.
It doesn't just reflect in character motivations, though. It's also reflected in the world building. Percy Jackson has one of the softest magic systems of any book series. The gods' magical abilities are theoretically limitless, except when they aren't. Yet by tying the gods to Western civilization, it gives context for what they are and where they come from. They have rules that must be followed because Western civilization has rules that must be followed. Things get somewhat murky and vague a lot of the time, but because the series makes it clear that there actually are rules to these things, and they have to play out a certain way, it cuts down some of the why don't the gods just do things themselves questions. Like the eagles in Mordor. The series explains some of these concepts with Pan in Battle of the Labyrinth and a lot of the enemies in the sequel series. Certain entities can fade away as their part in Western civilization fades. With Western civilization being such an integral part of the Percy Jackson mythos, why then would it be left on the cutting room floor? Well, it seems clear to me that no one at Disney actually values Western civilization. It is, after all, a well-known fact that Disney seeks to push left-wing ideology with their program, and since left-wing ideology is based on destabilizing everything that makes Western civilization great, there's no way they'd publish a major series that was based on defending Western civilization.
Time to rummage around in my pants. What the hell is this, a Bible?
Let me be specific in my meaning. I'm not saying that someone at Disney saw the Western civilization defense and made the deliberate choice to erase any and all references to them out of a sense of hate. Though, I wouldn't be surprised if that did happen. What I think happened is that in the process of adapting the book into a script, not a single person involved actually cares about the West. No one involved in that process would have cared when the West got cut. Because they don't value Western civilization, there's no way they would understand the importance that has to the story of Percy Jackson. So when it became necessary to make cuts, and any series going to have to make some cuts to adapt into a TV show, and Western civilization was the thing that ended up on the chopping block, there was no one to speak up for it. No one who would simply care. And because they didn't care about the basic philosophical tradition that undergirds the series, the whole adaptation suffers. It makes it feel kind of directionless. I mean, can you really understand that? A series that has a clearly written out plotline for about 15 years ends up feeling like it doesn't have a point. That shouldn't really be possible, but this is just what happens when you ignore the philosophy behind a work. Even a work of fiction for children like Percy Jackson can go from a winner to a dud without a strong understanding of the underlying philosophy.
Clean that up! Modernism's bad! Clean up! So go find your dad! Clean that up! And save him from the belly of the whale! Sort yourself out! That you know to be lies! Sort yourself out!
I hope the Percy Jackson series recovers and does well. I loved these books as a kid, and I feel like they're still an excellent series of books for kids. As of right now, I still have about half a series to watch before I can say for certain how it does. However, without some serious changes to the thinking of basically everyone involved in this project and the screenwriting process, I'm afraid it's most likely going to top out at being just fine. Which is fine, I suppose. It's just a shame because the series has so much potential. It could be so much more than that. This could really be the type of series that connects audiences of all ages and becomes a cultural icon. There could be games, trading cards, plushies, amusement parks. But that's just not going to happen with the series the way it is now. It needs the type of philosophical direction that Disney is simply incapable of bringing about, at least in this modern day and age. I don't even know if there's time to course correct without it feeling kind of like an awkward insertion at this point. I hope there is, though. Only time will tell. Hopefully the Percy Jackson series can pull itself together, if for no other reason than I'd kill to actually get to see this series finished out. But 5 series is a lot to expect. Shows can get canceled for much less, and even if they are well loved, I don't want to see this franchise being totally bungled for the second time. With the current state of Disney, though, they don't inspire much hope in me. I want to be proven wrong. I'm open to be proven wrong. Please prove me wrong, Disney. And please defend Western civilization. With that, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video.